Saint Augustine, Commentary on the Gospel of John, chapter 5, verse 19, following. Now the Jews were moved and indignant, justly indeed, because a man dared to make himself equal with God, but unjustly in this, because in the man they understood not the God. They saw the flesh, the God they knew not. They observed the habitation of the inhabitant, they were ignorant. That flesh was a temple, within it dwelt God. It was not the flesh that Jesus made equal to the Father. It was not the form of a servant that he compared to the Lord. Not that which he became for us, but that which he was when he made us. For who Christ is, I speak to Catholics, you know, because you have rightly believed. Not word only, nor flesh only, but the Word was made flesh to dwell among us. I recite again concerning the Word what you know. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Here is equality with the Father. But the Word was made flesh and dwelt amongst us. Than this flesh the Father is greater. Thus, the Father is both equal and greater, equal to the Word, greater than the flesh, equal to Him by whom He made us, greater than He who was made for us. By this sound Catholic rule, which you ought particularly to know, which you who know it hold fast, from which your faith ought not in any case to slip, which is to be wrested from your heart by no arguments of men. Let us measure the things we do understand, and the things which it may be we do not understand. Let us defer to be hereafter measured by this rule, when we shall be competent to do this. We know him then as equal to the Father, the Son of God, because we know him in the beginning as God, the Word. Why then sought the Jews to slay him? Because he not only broke the Sabbath, but also said that God was his Father, making himself equal with God. Seeing the flesh, not seeing the Word. Let him therefore speak against them, the Word through the flesh. Let him, the dweller within, speak forth through his dwelling place, that whoso can shall know who he is that dwells within. What says he then to them? Then answered Jesus and said unto them, being indignant because he made himself equal with God, Verily, verily, I say unto you, the Son can't do anything of himself, but what he sees the Father doing. What the Jews answered to these words is not written, and perhaps they said nothing. Certain, however, who wish to be esteemed Christians are not silent, but from these words somehow conceive certain opinions in contradiction to us, which are not to be despised, both for their and for our sakes. The Arian heretics, namely, while they assert that the Son, who took upon himself flesh, is less than the Father, not by the flesh, but before taking flesh, and not of the same substance as the Father, take a handle of misrepresentation from these words and reply to us. You see that the Lord Jesus, observing the Jews to be moved with indignations at his making himself equal to God the Father, subjoined such words as these to show that he was not equal with God. For the Jews, say they, were provoked against Christ because he made himself equal with God, and Christ, wishing to cure them of this impression and to show them that the Son is not equal to the Father, that is, to God, says this as if he said, "Why are you angry? Why are you indignant? I am not equal to God, since the Son can't do anything of himself except what he sees the Father doing." Now, say they, he who can't do anything of himself, but what he sees the Father doing, is surely less, not equal. In this distorted and depraved rule of his own heart, let the heretic hear us, not as yet chiding, but still as it were inquiring, and let him explain to us what he thinks. For I suppose whoever you are, for we may regard him as here present in person, you do hold with us that in the beginning was the Word. I do hold it, says he, and that the Word was with God. This too, says he, I hold. Proceed then and hold the stronger saying that follows, that the Word was God. Even this, says he, I hold. But yet this God the greater, that God the less. Now this somehow smells of the pagan. I thought I was speaking with a Christian. If there is God the greater and God the less, then we worship two gods, not one God. Why, says he, do you not to affirm two gods, equal the one to the other? This I do not assert, for I understand this equality as implying therein also undivided love, and if undivided love, then perfect unity. For if the love that God put in man does make of many hearts of men one heart, and do make many souls of men into one soul, as it is written of them, that believed and mutually loved one another in the Acts of the Apostles. They had one soul and one heart toward God. Acts chapter 4, verse 32. If therefore my soul and your soul become one soul, when we think the same thing and love one another, how much more must God the Father and God the Son be one God in the fountain of love? But to these words by which your heart is disturbed, bend your thought and reflect with me on that which we were seeking out concerning the Word. We already hold that the Word was God. I join to this another thing, that having said, "This was in the beginning with God," the evangelist immediately subjoined, "All things were made by him." Now will I urge you by questioning, now will I move you against yourself, and sue you against yourself. Only keep this in memory concerning the Word, that the Word was God, and all things were made by him. Hear now the words by which you were moved to assert that the Son is less, forsooth, because he said, "The Son can't of himself do anything, but what he sees the Father doing." Just so, says he. Explain to me this a little. This is, I presume, how you think, that the Father does certain things and the Son observes how the Father does, that he may also himself be able to do those things which he sees the Father doing. You have set up two artisans, as it were, the Father and the Son, just like master and learner, like as artisan fathers are wont to teach their sons their craft. Behold, I come down to your carnal sense. For the moment I think as you do. Let us see if this is our conception. Let us see if this, our conception, finds an issue in harmony with the things which you have just now alike spoken, and a like hold regarding the Word, that the Word was God, and that all things were made by him. Suppose then the Father as an artisan, doing certain works, and the Son as a learner, who can't of himself do anything, but what he sees the Father doing. He keenly watches in a manner the Father's hands, that as he sees him fashioning art, so he may himself in like manner fashion something similar by his own works. But the Father here does all things that he does, and wishes the Son to give heed to him, and to do the like also himself. By whom does the Father? Come, now is the time for you to stand to your former opinion, which you did recite with me, and did hold with me, that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and all things were made by him. But you, after holding with me that all things were made by the Word, do again, with your carnal wit and childish fancy, imagine with yourself God making something, and the Word giving heed, so that, when God has made, the Word also may make the like. Now what does God make without the Word? For if he does aught, then were not all things made by the Word? You have given up the position which you did hold. But if all things were made by the Word, correct that you did understand amiss. The Father made, and made only by the Word. In what way does the Word give heed to see the Father making without the Word what the Word may do in like manner? Whatever the Father has made, he made it by the Word. Else it is false that all things were made by him. But it is true that all things were made by him. Perhaps this did not seem enough for you? Well, and without him was nothing made.